Today we're starting a very interesting topic that we call United in Diversity. You see, this journey for me starts about 15 years ago when I moved to the Philippines for the first time. I happened to come to IAS to be a student. And I had come from a culture where we greet differently than what you find here happening at IAS. I came from a culture where when you meet somebody, you have a handshake. And so the more grip you have, the happier you are. That means you are really happy to meet the person. And it doesn't matter whether you know the person or not. And so I started greeting everyone on campus. Everyone I saw, I would greet, good morning, good afternoon, how are you? And people who did not know me, I noticed that they would turn after I walk because they found that something was wrong with my greeting. Because you see, here in the Philippines, people do not greet by shaking hands unless you know each other very well. And so this went on for like 3 or 4 months until I started observing people, and I discovered that they actually do not shake hands when they greet. What do they do in the Philippines? They just do like that. And when they do that, that means I have acknowledged you, I'm greeting you. But this problem can start a very big problem, because on one side, I could have easily misunderstood the Filipino people, thinking that they actually were not friendly people because they didn't want to greet me with a big smile and handshake. On the other side, the Filipino friends might have actually thought I was crazy because I was shaking hands with everybody else. Well, just looking at the greeting, you find that around the world, we have all different ways of greeting. For example, when I moved to the Caribbean, that was about 9 years ago, I found myself in a situation where people were kissing me to greet me. Well, that was a little uncomfortable for me, but in a number of countries in Latin America, when you greet each other, you have to kiss. Well, you go to other places. I have been to this culture where people greet with the nose. So the noses need to touch. And of course, in a number of countries, you find people hugging when they meet. And you may find another place here in Asia, for example, where when we greet each other, we take a bow. And so different cultures have different ways of expressing the same thing. The problem with IAS is that we all come from different cultures, from different countries, and everybody believes that their culture is the best. And so we find ourselves in some misunderstanding that was not meant to be actually misunderstanding. Looking back at the world, we find that when God created the world, He saw that all He had made, it was all very good. The original culture, as we look at it, it was a culture of perfection. Everything was perfect because it was heavenly culture. Everything was in harmony. Whether it was animals and insects and birds and human beings, they were all in perfect harmony. There was love everywhere. But then something changed, just like the culture keeps changing. What changed everything? It was sin. And sin introduced new values. For the first time, there was hatred. When we see Cain actually killing his brother, we see misunderstanding happening between human beings and in the animal kingdom, for example. And this could easily lead to diversity, and this diversity led to the Tower of Babel, where people couldn't understand each other. We see from there the proliferation of several cultures as people were leaving the Tower of Babel. What is culture? We want to know this as we go into this series of culture of United in Diversity. Culture, some people believe that it's a set of beliefs and morals, customs, norms, and values that govern the practice of everyday life. And we have different ways of doing this. I define culture as the lenses, as a set of lenses through which we see and interpret our life. We see the world differently. If we come from China, we have a tendency to look at the world like a Chinese. If we come from the Philippines, we look at the culture as Filipinos. When we come from Russia, we look at the world from the Russian perspective. If we come from the United States, we will look at it from the American perspective. And everybody, each one of us, believes that our set of lenses is the best way to actually see things. And so if you don't see the way I see things, I believe something is wrong with you. And of course, you are also saying the same thing, that if I don't do things the way you expect them, therefore something is wrong with me. I happened to travel in 2009 to the country of Uganda, that is East Africa. We were traveling there for a mission project, and as I was working in the village, we were helping build a church there. I found somebody. I asked for them to bring me a cup of water. It was hot. We're building the church. And so this lady came, and she was the age of my mom, and she came with the water, and she knelt down to give me the water. I was surprised. I didn't know what to do. I knelt down also because I didn't know whether I should kneel down or should accept the water or what I should do. You see, where I grew up, we don't believe in anybody kneeling in front of anybody else. And this is true about many, many cultures. We don't kneel in front of anybody else. And of course, friends I had traveled with that was from the United States, when they saw that, it was like, okay, colonization has already ended. Why is it that people are still kneeling down in front of others? Well, you see, it had nothing to do with colonization. It had nothing to do with oppression. It had everything to do with the culture. I asked them after I asked for explanation of what was happening here. They said, no, this is showing respect. I said, but I'm younger than her. I should be the one showing respect to her. They said, no, women must show respect to men. And so if she does not kneel, she is not going to feel comfortable. I felt that was a little strange. But you see, for them, it's not strange. It's perfectly fine. And some of the things that seem to be normal to us, they may actually feel strange to them. Something that is true is that culture is very complex. To make it even more interesting, the intercultural communication becomes even more complex, because everyone is coming with their set of values, and we try to communicate effectively. What causes the cultural diversity? We have contact with different cultures that will create a new culture or cultural diversity. We have migrations that are happening. Some people are forced, as we look at the issues right now around the Middle East, people are traveling all the way to Europe because of the war. That is a forced migration. But we have also voluntary migrations where people will come, for example, to IAS from all over the world to study because you want to study here at this university. That's a voluntary migration. We have globalization. We have information technology that is rapidly increasing. We have education, tourism. All these are causes of cultural diversity because they require people to move from one place to another one, and before we know it, we are meeting people from different cultures. This requires us to have what we call cultural sensitivity. We need to be sensitive to the differences. We need to be able to understand other people, to try to understand their perspective. We have different cultures, and that's okay. If I go to Uganda, especially the western side, and somebody kneels in front of me, I will not try to change that culture because that is what is dear to them. There is no culture that is superior over another. Unfortunately, some people believe that, well, actually all of us, we believe that our culture is superior over the other one. We must respect each other's culture. And we should agree to disagree. When I moved back to the Philippines, that was in 2011, to come here as a professor, I started getting invitations to speak in different universities. And my early months in that experience was a little traumatic. You see, I didn't grow up with the culture of pictures. But everywhere I went, in any university, as soon as I was done speaking, people would line up, they wanted to take a picture, and then it became even worse with the selfies. At first, I felt like it was kind of rude to me that somebody would take a picture with me without knowing me. But this did not stop. The first time, I thought it was just one university. I went to another one, it was the same thing. I went to conferences, it was the same thing. I said, oh, so it's a cultural thing. And then I heard somebody say it's more fun in the Philippines. Well, how can it be fun if you don't have pictures? You see, now after 5 years of living in the Philippines, I have become part of the picture culture. Now, as soon as somebody's done with their presentation, I say, can we have pictures? And so it doesn't hurt me anymore because I have embraced that culture. Because I'm not going to stand here and say, my Filipino friends, please stop taking the pictures. No, it is part of the culture. We want to keep the memories. After several years, we want to post it on Facebook. And so we have to have this cultural sensitivity where we allow people to be comfortable in their culture, especially when we are in their culture. Because if they come to our culture, we will most likely push them also to follow our culture. When we do not become sensitive to other cultures, this leads to stereotypes. This leads to prejudices. This may lead to misunderstanding, and we're going to talk about some of that in this series. This may lead to hatred, simply because there was cultural insensitivity. You can just imagine if you were a lady and you happened to be in that place in Uganda and you did not kneel down to greet or to give the water. That could be misinterpreted. This can actually lead to something even worse, and that is crime. Crime has also some roots in cultural insensitivity. This can lead to genocide. So we want to be very careful when it comes to cultural diversity. We need to learn to be united in diversity. You see, despite our challenges, our differences, we are expected to live peacefully with everyone. That's what the Bible says. We live with everyone despite the fact that they come from different religions, from different ethnic groups, from different languages, from different worldviews, from different cultures. We have to live with everyone. We cannot live isolated. We have to learn to live with everyone despite the differences that we have. I want to tell you a story of my experience in Myanmar. I happened to travel there twice because we have a DLC center there. And in Myanmar, they have a complex culture just like Thailand. And one thing that struck me was that something to do with food. You see, in Myanmar, there's a lot of delicious food, a lot of organic food that they are serving. And so with my host, what happened is that they had all this food. The first time I traveled there was 2012. They had a lot of food on the table. And I looked around, I thought maybe it was for 5-6 people, but it was obviously only for me. I said, this is going to be a lot of fun because I have all this food to myself. Well, I came and I sat down. The host asked me to come and sit at a specific chair. And his wife came and they sat down. And they asked me to pray. Well, that was take one. That a visitor usually in my culture does not pray for the food. It's actually the host who prays for the food. I said, well, that's perfectly fine. I can definitely offer a prayer. Actually, I can make this fast because I want to dig in. And so I prayed. And lo and behold, they had already finished eating. They ate before I came. I thought we were going to eat together. They said, oh, no, we're already done. Okay, all right. In my mind, they are going to tell me a lot of stories from Myanmar. Well, there was no story. The only thing that was there is that the husband and the wife were looking at me. So at first, I tried to change that situation and start telling some stories while eating. Multitasking is not really good when you're eating. Trying to eat and tell a few stories so that they can pick up and actually tell some stories from Myanmar. But at the end of my story, there was no other story. I had to wait. I said, this is uncomfortable. I look on the left side, somebody's looking at me. As I put the spoon on the plate, the eyes go down. As I put the spoon up in the mouth, eyes go up. And it goes back and forth. I look on the right side, same thing. I look on the left side, same thing. The first 3 days, I never got full. Because, you see, cultures, most of the cultures I've lived in, if you look at somebody intently, it means, hey, slow down on my food. Well, it was only much later on, after I had come back to the Philippines, and I met some of our Myanmar students who live on this campus. I asked them, so what is happening? They said, oh, that is show of respect. I said, okay, I will remember that when I go back to Myanmar. So 2016, in May 2016, I traveled back to Myanmar. It was for teaching another course, and the same thing happened. And in my mind, you can look at me, I'm going to enjoy this food. Because I have discovered that actually when they do that, they are encouraging you to eat more. And actually, I discovered now when I went the second time, that whenever I was done with the food, they would just add some more. You know, it was confusing the first time because I said, when you're looking at me, you know, it's like you're telling me to slow down. But not the second time, you look at me, I said, that's all right in my mind. Just keep looking. I'm going to keep eating. Oh, when I came back, I had put on 5 more kilograms. This series we have started today, I intended to learn about different cultures. Because IAS is a very unique place. A unique place that I know of in the world, where the foreigners are more than the nationals. And so we have to learn to live at peace with everyone, despite the cultural differences. We're going to try to develop multicultural sensitivity. So when somebody acts differently from us, it's not because they are retarded. It's not because something is wrong with their brain, but it's because they have a different set of eyes through which they look at the world. We're going to try to help communicate interculturally. We hope that everyone, as we go through this series, will be able to pick a few things that will help us to be better communicators when we deal with people from different cultures. We're going to promote unity in diversity. I want to welcome all of you as we continue this series on being united in diversity. God bless you all.